In this lecture, we'll explore the concept of functional programming in Python. Now, Python is a versatile programming language that allows you to solve problems in different ways. And one such approach is functional programming, which is different from what one would consider the usual way of writing programs in Python. Let's dig a bit deeper into this last statement with a few important concepts. And the first of these is called avoiding side effects. Now, normally when you write a function, it doesn't have to be in Python, it could be any programming language really, it might change some values or data outside of the function. And it's this behavior that we call a side effect. So as a principle, in functional programming, we try to avoid this, instead focusing on making functions that don't change anything outside of themselves. The next notion to talk about is referential transparency. Now, this is a fancy term on the surface of things, but it simply means that a function always gives the same result with the same inputs and doesn't affect or get affected by anything else in the program. For example, if you have a function that calculates the square of a number, it will always give the same result for the same number provided to it as an input. Then there's the notion of pure functions. These are functions that don't cause side effects and are hence referentially transparent. They're like a math formula. You put something in and you always get the same result out without changing anything else. And lastly, the notion of first-class functions. In Python, functions are treated like any other variable. You can assign them to variables, pass them around in your program, and do all sorts of things with them, just like you would a number or a string, for example. Now, Python is by no means a fully functional language like some other programming languages, but it does have many features that support functional programming in general. For example, Lambda functions. These allow you to write small, anonymous functions and use functions in versatile ways. Then there are functions like map, filter, and, for example, reduce from the functools module, and these are special functions for dealing with lists or collections. The map function, for example, applies a function to each item in a list. The filter function picks out certain items from a list. And the reduce function, part of the functools module, combines items in a list in some way specified by you. There is a special construct in Python called a generator, and generators allow you a way to create iterators in a memory-efficient manner using the yield keyword. In Python, you can use functions to process data in lists or collections, and this can be a lot more straightforward and efficient than, say, using loops. You can also combine simple functions in Python to build complex behavior using a number of small composed units of functionality rather than one big function doing everything either sequentially or in just one big block of code that is otherwise difficult to maintain, modify, or evolve as time goes by. So it makes your code easier to understand and hence maintain. In this course, we'll go through immutable data structures. Now, using things that don't change, like tuples, for example, can make your code simpler and safer because you don't have to worry about unexpected changes. So in conclusion, in this introduction, we've talked about functional programming in Python offering a different way to think about writing your programs. It's about focusing on functions that don't change anything outside of themselves and using these functions to process data in a clear and efficient way. This approach makes your code cleaner and easier to understand, especially when dealing with data transformations or operations on lists. So without further ado, let's get straight into the very first hands-on coding session in this course to give you a code-based view of all the concepts we've just discussed in this first introductory lecture and set ourselves up for a good experience throughout the rest of the course, filled with a lot more detail to further reinforce all the concepts you're going to learn throughout the course. See you in a bit.